that was absolutely fantastic. Next, so we have two more speakers. Next up we have Andrew Kirby. So I met Andrew outside the Powerhouse Museum during the Sydney Mini Maker Fair. And I found out a bit about his background, which we'll hear about, and got very excited because I saw the potential for something really amazing to happen in collaboration with Biohacker, which is our lab here in Sydney. And I've got two people here today, Tom over here, Andrew and Adam together. We drank a case of beer, and then out of that came Synth Space. So without further ado, please introduce Andrew to the stage.
Thank you very much. I actually have a 0-slide presentation this evening. It's the early stages of what we're actually doing. I'll give you a bit of a background of where or how I've come to be here. Essentially, a self-taught chemist from a young age, pyrotechnics and photographic chemistry. Quite well known with the police and fire departments when I was young. And essentially, while working for quite a big educational software company, I decided to go to university and formalize my training and actually get a piece of paper. And I've sort of always had a lab set up at my parents' house, and I found it really, really difficult to obtain reagents and glassware and things. Anything you try and buy, they think you're operating in methyl, or you're trying to start World War III, something like that. So essentially, about a year and a half ago, I started up a scientific supply company just to import my own chemicals and basically bypass I'm allowed to name names, but the Sigma Aldrich, the giant sort of chemical company problems. And where that went to is essentially I started to need a space to synthesize chemicals for various people, and I've been unable to find a space that I could do that. I'm studying at university. They wouldn't have me anywhere near the laboratories unless there was a few people supervising, probably for good reason. But I think the key in all of this is that even though I was at university and studying and actually getting a chemistry degree, there was no place that I could actually do chemistry unless it was inside a formal structured tutorial or laboratory session. I thought, well, okay, if this is the case, there's going to be a lot of other people that want to experiment and want to learn about what is it, chemistry. It's really just like another language, but don't have a space. They don't have the ability to learn. And if they don't want to go to university and get a 3 or 4 year degree, they're basically cut out. So if they have any ideas or innovations, that basically gets left out. And with universities, they're great educational institutions for getting a really structured and formal education with a bit of paper at the end. But as far as fostering innovation and then commercializing it, it's a very different story. So essentially, what we're trying to do with SynthSpace is give people a place, firstly, primarily scientifically trained people for safety and legislative reasons, a place where they can conduct their research outside of university or corporate environments. So they retain the majority, or if not all, of their intellectual property associated with their research and developments, but also have a space where they have the freedom to be creative and work on things that maybe a PhD research project at a university wouldn't be suited to, or if it was, the university would then retain ownership of the intellectual property. And in Australia, we don't really have a very good history or track record of commercializing university research. And that's really disappointing because there's a lot of people doing really amazing stuff, but it sort of just gets committed to maybe a journal here or there, or the university archives. And if a university does actually commercialize something, they're retaining anywhere from 50% to 100% of the intellectual property. And universities in the business of providing education, not in the business of business. So I think what we're trying to do is basically get people out of that rigid structured environment, give them a space where they can actually work, can actually develop things, and retain the ownership of their intellectual property, as well as have a space where they can develop a business. So if they've got something that they're working on, they want to take it to the next level, get it to the next stage where they can actually they can actually have a commercial product or early stages. It's sort of like an incubator for a tech company, but with So that's sort of what we're aiming at, and it's quite surprising. You start to tell people about this, and they say, "Ah, great. I have this student that would be really interested. They're working on something. It's a bit left of field, but hey, they really want to develop that." And I think owing to the gigantic amount of money that's spent on research and technology and developments, say in a drug company, they might spend $100 million before they get really out of a mouse trials or something like that. So we're basically trying to not only reduce the amount of time that it takes to develop new molecules, essentially, but also rapidly and vastly increase the amount of people working on things outside of the university and corporate structure. So the plan is initially to set up one laboratory in Sydney, which we'll have built in January, which is basically, it's next to Biofoundry. So we've got a great space there with a bunch of creative people, and Biofoundry is a great sort of partner to be involved with. And we're basically going to start off there. We've got a great bunch of people who are either PhD or research chemists, and myself, still undergraduate, taking forever to study. But to build a space, a laboratory where people can come and work on a membership basis and just work on their stuff. But also we want to expand that to science education. So my background previously, the company called 3P Learning, which makes, pardon me, that's essentially they were working on a piece of software called Mathletics. I'm sure some of you may be familiar with that. But they were basically taking maths education worldwide via the internet. We want to do the same thing with chemistry education, take it outside of the university structure and provide that sort of education to students and really anyone who wants to learn without having to go to university, which means that those people can then, they might have that eureka moment and say, okay, I think we're going to go down that angle of research. And take research away from universities and companies, essentially. I think that's going to be a very important part of rapid drug development, energy research, things like battery technology, taking it away from the sort of confines of intellectual property trap, which is a very powerful thing for commercialization, but it can sort of stifle research and collaboration. So that's the sort of plan. The pipe dream is essentially to set up laboratories in each continent with a bunch of like-minded people within 2 years. So that's what we're doing. Curious to know whether you have any questions.
How do you make sure people don't make nothing alive?
They will sign a waiver to say. It seems something the police would be very interested in going to recent experiences. So yes, we have a no math policy. And, with a no smoking sign is the round thing. With a picture of Walter White. That's essentially how we solve the illicit drug manufacture problem. Not that there is one.
What's some of the projects?
Some of the projects. At the moment, so initially I'm sort of self-funding quite a lot of the laboratory use and development for my own business. I import and distribute chemicals, and I basically need a laboratory to either finish products that I import or synthesize intermediates for on-selling. So that's the first port of call. But I think the key areas are going to be mental health research in terms of drugs, energy research for battery storage, and fuel cell technology.
If I can jump in as well, being next to Biofoundry, there's a lot of opportunity for us to buy reagents and also manufacture things, which is really great for these spaces working together. And Biofoundry, for any of you that have been there, we're surrounded by 50 artists, and a big part of being in a space like this is being able to work with them. So they've expressed interest in things like pigments, essential oils. Those are really good ways to engage the public with open chemistry. It's funny, there's more like demand for open chemistry than there is for open biology. So people say, oh, I know exactly how I'd use that type of thing. Biology, like, what are you guys kind of doing?
interests have always been in photographic chemistry. So that's an area of research that I would like to continue personally, and that consists of patent diving, going through Kodak patents, from 30 years ago, and see what you can actually do, because there's still a lot of merit in those sort of discoveries for things like X-rays or film production, which still occurs. So yeah, that's something that I'm interested in. The other guys are working on supercapacitor technology in their own realms, and dopamine antagonists for essentially Parkinson's research. So that's sort of where we're heading, I think.
Have you got any reactions from the big pharma scientists or anything like that?
Not at this point, no.
No?
We've sort of, basically the plan is to get the lab up and running, so we have a viable shop to spring. So that's the goal.
Yeah.
Are you engaging NFP if you're making drugs for things like mental health?
FP?
NFP, like the not-for-profit sector, who might be wanting to fund things like that?
We will be set up as a non-for-profit organisation on membership.
But would you, I mean, in terms of mental health
Yeah,
charities who would be wanting to fund research into new drugs,
Yes.
are you engaging with
100%.
that sector? Yeah.
Yes.
Are you familiar with click chemistry by any chance? Click chemistry?
Click chemistry.
Click chemistry.
No.
No? Alright, I'll talk about it later on then.
What's clear chemistry?
It's a gang of hardened chemists.
Hard to explain. It's a way of being able to basically get certain chemicals to bind to other. I don't really know the details, but it's how do I explain it? It basically enables you to combine certain molecules inside living organisms to affect certain chemical reactions. It's kind of hard to explain. I'm not familiar with the chemistry. I just know the biology side of things. But it'd be really cool if in this lab, if we would be able to get the reagents necessary in order to synthesize the certain molecules necessary for chemistry. Because although I don't know how the chemistry works, I know the application that we can use that in biology, and that'd be really cool if we could merge that with the hacker space as well. So that'd be something to look into.
Okay.
Just finally, if people want to get involved with synth space, what type of skills are you looking for, and how will they get in contact with you?
Chemists. People who are involved in non-for-profit or establishing this sort of organisation or are familiar with intellectual property legislation, so I guess patent lawyers. The other thing that we're finding quite difficult is actually getting information. We would be, I think, the first people opening an open source chemistry laboratory anywhere in the world. There are people conducting open source sort of research, but primarily funded by venture capitalists. So VC firms, there are a few people doing that, but really with a slightly different angle. They're very, very targeted, very specific research. We actually want to not have any restrictions on that. There may be some key areas of research, but to have more and more restrictions is sort of what we're trying to avoid. So anyone who has contacts in that area would be fantastic.
Fantastic. Please join me in thanking Andrew. Just 2 minutes break, and then we'll have Neil up, and then we're done for the night, and we'll move down to the bar for drinks downstairs somewhere. Oh, yes.
Let's leave it on.
Consulting. At the moment, I'm working for a startup called building a product called allows stores to drivers on their operation. I've always used my drivers, so I'm seeing all the orders, arrange them.